The latest verdict following the Suzuka weekend: is this Ferrari fundamentally flawed and therefore truly forced to surrender in Formula One? The 4th and 7th places at the Japanese Grand Prix marked the Maranello team's best results so far this season, at the end of the third round of the 2025 Formula One Championship. Far too little for a car that was supposed to fight for the title. That celebration in Milan feels like an eternity ago. The excitement, the desire to win, the certainty in some ways of being competitive. The first 3 races of the season have brought a harsh wake-up call for the prancing horse. Was it all really just a dream? And was the victory in the Shanghai sprint race nothing more than a mirage? The mood in the garage seems to confirm it. Charles Leclerc is known for being expressive, and his pessimism after Suzuka is a clear sign. Something hasn't gone as the team hoped this year. Having to yield to McLaren might have been foreseen, sure. But after Australia, China, and Japan, some are even calling Ferrari the 4th force. That's a bitter blow for a team that aimed to be the first. Ferrari is therefore disappointed as the SF-25 does not live up to expectations. At the Bahrain International Circuit next weekend, changes to the floor are expected in an attempt to respond to Charles Leclerc, who is urgently calling for developments as the 4th place secured in the Japan Grand Prix once again revealed the SF-25 car's limits. The red single-seater is over 3/10 behind McLaren and Red Bull, which should be pointed out that made an undeniable leap in quality by winning with Max Verstappen. This is a gap that cannot be reduced just by gaining a deeper understanding of the car and painstaking setup work. At the 5.807-kilometer Suzuka Circuit, a very representative track for determining the competitive order after 2 abnormal circuits such as Albert Park in Melbourne and the Shanghai International Circuit, a deficit Ferrari emerged. Team principal Frederic Vasseur believes that, before making any changes, it would be better to continue working on understanding the car rather than insisting on new developments. The driver and team principal have very different views on what the immediate future should look like. Charles Leclerc knows he gave his very best last weekend in Japan, and to be able to improve, if there are still championship ambitions for the 2025 Formula One season, something must quickly change. Frederic Vasseur, on the other hand, believes that the Maranello team can repeat last year's path after a similarly sluggish start. But in 2024, the fundamental issue was that the SF-24 bounced too much at high speeds, where it also lacked performance. This time, it is not certain that the solutions will be the same, as the SF-25 car performs well at high speed, but struggles in low-speed corners. In the previous Formula One championship, the car had to be raised to avoid porpoising, an endemic issue with ground effect cars, and once a way was found to neutralize the bouncing with increased downforce, the red car began an exciting comeback, resulting in 5 victories and a second-place finish in the Constructors' Championship, just 14 points behind McLaren after a thrilling battle that lasted until the final lap of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. With the current car, however, ground clearance must be increased in order to avoid excessive wear on the plank, which cost Lewis Hamilton his disqualification in the Chinese Grand Prix. The sprint race in Shanghai provided clear answers. In the 100-kilometer sprint race, it is possible to make the red car very glued to the track surface because only 40 kilos of fuel are loaded into the tank, and in that configuration, the SF-25 is not only competitive but extremely fast. Just ask Lewis Hamilton for confirmation. The same Ferrari prepared for Sunday's Grand Prix, which was a winning car the previous day, suddenly becomes the 4th best car on the grid. If you don't want to face problems during the FIA post-race checks, it is essential to raise the car, losing aerodynamic downforce and the ability to transfer the necessary energy to the tires to prevent wear. Therefore, it is not guaranteed that a cut-and-paste approach in some points of the floor will solve the problem as it did with the SF-24 in the 2024 Formula One campaign. The issue is much more complicated. One thing is controlling bouncing, and another is finding a way to run lower. The aerodynamic map of the SF-25 was designed for a height that the car cannot afford on track, risking the grading of the plank beyond the famous millimeter allowed by the FIA. After paying the price at the Shanghai International Circuit, the Ferrari technicians and engineers cannot afford a second blow to its prestige, and Charles Leclerc found himself driving a red car that was fairly balanced but simply slow. Excluding the direct responsibility of the front suspension switched to a pull rod layout, there is strong doubt that the issue also lies in the layout of Project 677, which revolutionized the way weight distribution is achieved according to the regulations. To lower the car to minimum heights, you need extremely stiff suspension, but if the car was designed to work with softer setups, it is easier to scrape along the track, entering a danger zone. With the SF-25 higher and less capable of generating downforce with the floor, it is necessary to compensate for the loss of aerodynamic load with more resistant profiles, while Red Bull in the Japanese Grand Prix gave Max Verstappen an advantage by unloading the rear mainplane. Ferrari, so far, has used a medium downforce rear wing, without adjusting the configuration to suit the characteristics of different tracks, as others have done. A single specification was expected to perform well everywhere, optimizing performance. The issues are therefore coming to light. 3/10 cannot be recovered in a straightforward manner by just working on the setup. Changes are necessary, as Charles Leclerc has been asking. Because the gap to other top teams is widening, and the chase will be much harder than last year. If Ferrari's best car of the year finishes 4th with Charles Leclerc and 7th with Lewis Hamilton, 16 and 29 seconds behind Max Verstappen respectively, it means something is wrong. The result is unacceptable for a team with the most resources in Formula One, a team that started with the goal of winning right away. Instead, promises of success continue to be postponed, and the drivers are clearly complaining about a car that is far below their expectations. All right, we will wait as we have been doing for decades and give the engineers and technicians in Maranello the chance to fix things. But the wait is excessive given the potential that Ferrari, as a company and racing department, is capable of expressing. Perhaps a shakeup is needed, a clarifying discussion, but only President John Elkann or Chief Executive Officer Benedetto Vigna can initiate that. For sure, Japan, with a track that did not wear out anyone's tires, was a good opportunity to erase the disgrace of Shanghai, where both SF-25 cars were excluded from the results for technical irregularities, an embarrassment never before recorded at Maranello. But we must see if the 3/10 per lap gap noticed in qualifying and the race was due to the track's leniency or a real potential of the car that showed itself on a difficult, challenging circuit, which for Ferrari was already a chance to redeem itself after China. In terms of lap times, Suzuka's result is somewhat reassuring and fuels the usual hopes. But are these hopes real or fleeting? We might find out as soon as next Sunday in Bahrain. However, the fact remains that McLaren is still the fastest car on track, even though it should have given Oscar Piastri the chance to attack Max Verstappen. Once it became clear that Lando Norris, intimidated and insecure around the 4-time Formula One world champion, would never do it. In reality, the Dutchman made a perfect setup for his Red Bull, and, from pole position, went straight to victory. But he himself says there are balance issues to resolve, and perhaps the Bahrain race will highlight weaknesses that were hidden at the Suzuka Circuit last weekend.